Hello, friend. Thanks for joining me for another book chat. Today, let's spend some time with The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan, originally published back in 1990. I wanted to read this because it's book 2 of the Wheel of Time series, which I watched recently, season 1 on Amazon Prime, and loved it. I read book 1, The Eye of the World, and I've already chatted that, so I'll link to that chat down below. But I did want to get the second one, and I hope to get the third book of the series read before season 2 of The Wheel of Time drops in, I think, sometime in February. So, yeah, The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan. So what is this one about? First of all, I'm going to start off by saying I'm not going to give away anything that I think would detract from a first-time reader's experience with The Great Hunt or a first-time watchers of the series of The Wheel of Time. But what this is about, basically, I thought the best way to kick off this chat would actually be with a quote from the book, and that is, "There is now one who walks the world, one who was and will be, but is not yet, the dragon." So the dragon in the false dragon. So the dragon in the Wheel of Time, in the Great Hunt, the dragon is a person who is sort of like this eternal champion who centuries ago was able to wield the one power, male energy, the Sidene energy. There was a sort of a showdown between the Dark One, sort of the forces of evil, and the Aes Sedai, the women who can wield the one power are called Aes Sedai, and the males then could at that point in time actually also wield the one power. And the 100 the 100 companions were men, some of the strongest Aes Sedai men who could wield the one power. Ultimately, they did overthrow the Dark One, but at a great cost. It cost the breaking of the world, it's known as. And one of the consequences of the breaking of the world was the tainting of the male side of the energy, the Sidene energy. And so males, since then, cannot channel the one power without going insane and then causing chaos and violence. So the dragon, though, and the dragon reborn, the dragon is in the prophecy where there is going to be a male who can, again, channel the male energy, the Sidene energy, and then that would have another showdown then with the Dark One. And so that's sort of where we are in this story as far as the Dark One and the dragon, or the dragon reborn, or the expectation of the dragon being reborn, and this sort of final showdown. Now, The Great Hunt, the title of the book, actually comes from the hunting for a particular horn, this horn of Valeri. So this horn of Valeri is a sort of a magical horn that, if it's blown, once the horn is blown, these sort of heroes from the past will come back to assist whoever blows the horn to defeat the Dark One. And so that's sort of really the whole kind of quest. I'm going to talk more about the different kind of hunts, though, going on in this book here in a bit. But I talked about the male energy, the Sidene energy got tainted, and so the males who can actually channel the one power, they're called false dragons. Often, if a man can channel the power, he thinks he's the dragon reborn and then starts presenting himself as a dragon, and these are known as false dragons. So the red Ajas are different types of Aes Sedai who can, the red Ajas are actually a type of Aes Sedai whose purpose really and their focus is hunting down men who can channel the one power, can try to are trying to channel the one power, and then they do something to him called gentling. And for a man to be gentled means that he is separated from the one power. power, the one sort of the magic. And so he can still feel it out there, but he can no longer access it. And so this is actually very traumatic to the man to actually have this experience. And then women can also have this occur to them, but in women it's called being stilled. So being stilled is when an Aes Sedai or a woman who can channel the power has that power taken from her by Aes Sedai, and she is then called stilled. I think that's pretty cool. So the Dark Friends, I mentioned the Dark Friends in the previous book, but Dark Friends are those who serve the Dark One. And so at the very beginning of the book, there is this assembly of Dark Friends, and we get the picture here at the very beginning of the book that Dark Friends are in very high places of power. And so they're sent to all the four corners then of the known world here to interfere with not only finding the Great Horn, but also in the coming battle, the defeat of sort of the forces of good, to then sort of release the Dark One from where he's being held, and then he vows to break the wheel of time and then be in power forever. But I wanted to mention Hurin because Hurin is a character in this story that introduces us to another aspect of sort of the magic of this world. And Hurin is a man who can actually, he's known as a sniffer. He can sniff, he can sense violence on others. So if a person or a being has done violence, he can sniff them out sort of and follow their trail. If it's not too old, if it hadn't happened all that long ago or whatever, he can actually sniff this out. So he comes in very handy with the forces of good seeking the Great Horn, because the forces of evil, the Dark Ones, the ones who serve the Dark Ones, are almost always surrounded by violence, and so they can kind of follow their trail. So that's really cool. And then another people that's introduced into this particular book is the Seanchan. The Seanchan are these people from across the ocean, the Aerith Ocean, and they are returning home. They have been from this world before, but they have been gone for centuries, but they're returning home to claim what they consider their rightful place and their rightful land. They are very brutal, though, in their methods of conquering. And the interesting thing here to me was those who need to be leashed versus those who are leashed. So the Damani are those who are leashed. These are Aes Sedai. So these Seanchans, the Seanchan people, they actually capture Aes Sedai, women who can channel the one power, and then they have a way of sort of enslaving them with this chain and leash. And it's very brutal. And so some of our main characters here get caught up in this, and so the Seanchan are hunting them. So speaking of different kinds of hunts, I mentioned this earlier. So there's the hunt for the horn. There's the hunt for those who have the horn. This changes a couple of different times because the possession of the horn changes. But those who have, they're hunting then Rand, who, particular characters who have certain Taveran powers. Taveran is a person who the pattern of fate has chosen this person to be sort of an agent of change, an agent of power. And so there's this hunt going on. There's multiple hunts going on. And then the Seanchans, of course, are hunting for Aes Sedai. We got the White Cloaks. They're this sort of fanatical religious sect that seek dark friends, but they use sort of the tactics of the Inquisition, torture. They assume everyone's guilty of being a dark friend, so they're a very sort of sinister group. They're hunting dark friends, who they consider dark friends, which actually would include almost everybody we have as our heroes here. So multiple types of hunts going on. And then, one thing that I just keep loving about this is the gendered use of the magic. The gendered use of magic here, I think the way it's done in this series is so cool. The Saidan energy and the Saidar energy, I think it's just so cool. One thing that sort of impressed me here was the different sort of lower, subtler levels. So not necessarily men and women who can channel the one power, but these 5 powers. There's earth, fire, wind, water, and spirit. And so earth and fire are more masculine powers, and air and water are more feminine powers, and then spirit is more or less equal. But one of our female characters, Egwene, actually has the ability to sense mining ore, and this is one of the reasons why the Shan-Chan are looking for her, is because she has this ability, and not very many women have this ability that well, because it's an earth power, right? So it's more of a masculine power. And then, we have some others here. The wisdoms are women who are not Aes Sedai. They can't channel the one power necessarily, but they can sense the wind. They can sense like the weather and certain healing sort of things that they can, power that they can sort of sense. And then we have Huron, I believe the sniffer, I think he's an example of a man who's exhibiting this sort of masculine power. And the Wolf Brothers are those very rare men who can actually talk and interact with wolves. And I believe this is also an example of maybe the earth, the male powers. And then the way that the males and females access the one power, the females sort of see this inwardly as a flower, accepting the energy, and the males see it as a flame when they see it inwardly. So I thought that was really kind of cool too. So the dagger, there's a dagger that figures not only with the horn, but our group here is looking for this dagger. One of the members of the group, their life actually depends on finding this dagger. It's been tainted with some serious evil. And I think this is a metaphor for how very small things like this little small dagger can cause so much evil, because it can spread. Whatever it touches, whatever this little evil touches, creates more corruption and more evil. And there's a cool quote here about that I think is so cool. This is one of the Aes Sedai Moraines saying, "Such a small thing, that dagger," she mused, "but it will corrupt whoever carries it long enough. He who carries it will in turn corrupt those who come in contact with him, and they will corrupt still others. I wonder how many people it can taint in, say, a year." I think that's really cool, because it's sort of a metaphor for just evil in general, right? Doing these small little evils can actually create bigger evils down the road. And I thought that was real cool. Another really main thought and impression I had was around coming to terms with who you are and what your role in the pattern of fate really is. And a lot of our characters, several of our characters struggle with this a lot. One of them is Perrin. Perrin is a wolf brother. He can actually see and communicate with wolves, but he will not tell. He's kept this secret from everybody. He can't come. Is having a very difficult time coming to terms that he is a wolf brother and accepting the fact that he's a wolf brother. And I love this quote about that. He says he had tried denying it from the first, long before his eyes began to change from dark brown to burnished golden yellow. At that first meeting, that first instant of recognition, he had refused to believe, and he had run from that recognition ever since. He still wanted to run. Also, Rand needs to accept the fact that he's got a leadership position now. People need to call him Lord. People need to respect his authority, because that's how they're going to get things done. And he's not real comfortable with that, because he has a background as a shepherd. And so, he's just a very reluctant hero. There's a quote here from Loyal, one of the other members of the party, to Rand, that says, "I'm afraid I'm not a very good hero, Rand. I was so afraid I could hardly think." "We were both afraid," Rand said. We may be a poor pair of heroes, but we are what there is." I think that's so cool, because, we might not be that great of heroes, but right now we're what everything depends on. So we got to do what we can the best way we know how. I think I'll leave the chat with that. I do plan to read book 3 in the next month or so. The Dragon Reborn will be the next in the Wheel of Time series, but my next chat will actually be Nightmare Alley by William Lindsay Gresham, some noir fiction from 1946. This is the book on which the Guillermo del Toro movie, is based. This was so good. I've already finished it. I should have a chat on this coming up very soon. Until next time, take care. Bye.